Yo, I don't know what I feel about this Alpo shit. For me, in New York City, when you try being in the game, you ever in the street, you just learn things that you never would have learned unless you were in the street. But in New York City, in the 90s, like rap music was trying to copy the image of a rapper, was more or less what Alpo and these guys basically were icons for in the late 80s, early 90s. This is a controversial statement for a lot of street dudes, but most of these rappers, I want to say 100% of these rappers, do not have this guy's story. It's just that he couldn't rap, but he was like a, you know, there were a lot of people who were making money in the 80s and 90s in the street life, right? And there was so much money that flummoxed because of, well, that came in because of crack. And the mob really wasn't in control of the crack. If you think about it, the mob wasn't in control of crack, because that's when the mob got broken up by Giuliani. And then you have crack injected into the hood as like wildfire. Shit went viral. And the mob really had no control of it. They had the number run and shit like that, but there's a lot of reasons why crack exploded the way that it did. And a lot of, you know, blacks and Spanish people that came from poverty, overnight millionaires. And in New York City, for me, I grew up, I didn't know, I'm from Queens. So when we heard the name Alpo, it was legendary because you heard Nas mention it. So there were these little myths, but I was still too young to even understand what that really meant. You just knew what someone was doing in the street, and just, well, I did. I couldn't be around that because my mom was not allowing it. But you just knew it was someone somewhere that was doing something in the street, right? And then by the time the mid-90s come around, that story with him killing Rich Porter, I didn't know who either of them were, but that story was really felt like a shockwave throughout the city, because it embodied the end of like the crack era. It was not, you know, not that event itself, but it was emblematic of where we were since the 80s. And it's the epitome of what, you know, what was going on. Everything that was happening, all the killing and just the wrongness of everything. But everything was very fast. And there was a sense about it. Like nowadays, that's what I'm saying, nowadays ain't really, there's a lot of shit going on, but there was too much money in a lot of people's hands back then that caused a lot of these wars that were just ridiculous. Like, imagine Chicago being imagine New York being what Chicago is right now. New York would be crazy. There's too many people here. So that's what was going on in New York before Giuliani cleaned it up. And Alpo was really an iconic figure in the street. And all these guys can say whatever they want about being a rat, this, that, and the third. I don't even like going back and forth with that shit with people, because to me, that ain't my thing. If you're really about that, why are you talking about that shit out loud? I should not know what your opinion is about a rat. If you don't believe in that shit. That anybody who comes up to me talking that stupid shit, I walk away from you. I want nothing to do with you. I go to work every day and I see you people ratting me out over what time I came back from work. I can only imagine what you scoundrels would do if we were in the street. So I just think he was a conqueror in a sense. He was trying to conquer. And he looked at it like a game. Like him, who are the biggest quote unquote rats that they talk about? Him and Sammy the Bull. And it really took a while to get at Alpo, right? He just died, what was it, 5, 6 years he was in the street? I don't hear about nobody running up on Sammy the Bull. You understand? So, and it wasn't like he had something to do with this guy going down. Like Sammy the Bull brought down John Gotti. Probably the most iconic gangster ever now, right? You telling me nobody wants a name? They don't want a name for themselves and kill Sammy the Bull or kill an Alpo? You think nobody wants that? Of course they do. But it definitely was a story. And so Alpo getting killed is, to say that you don't have any opinion on it, especially if you grew up in the 90s, 80s, rappers made it even more legendary because they were, look at Dapper Dan. He was wearing Dapper Dan shit. He kind of immortalized Dapper Dan shit. All the Feds magazines, all that shit. All this rat talk is funny to me. A star is a star. And I know how anybody could feel about it. Oh, there's no integrity, it's that and the third. Man, people are quite loyal. They're quite loyal to the most convenient option. And a lot of times that option of convenience is usually led by fear. You're scared into whatever your options are. So it's easy. It's when you have no fear, you can jump online and talk all that rat shit. There's no repercussion to that. Who the fuck are you to talk about that, right? Nobody's there to check you, and we're all spectating. Like all everybody sounds like when you do shit like that. It's like people in the crowd holding up, like when they taunt you with different signs in a basketball game. Like remember when like 20 years ago in Boston and the Nets, they had a heated rivalry in the playoffs, or they had like a back and forth. Somebody in the crowd put, will somebody please stab Paul Pierce? So you're in the crowd, you're a spectator, but you ain't part of the game. Paul Pierce probably looked at that and was like, that's crazy. But he's the one playing the game. He doesn't care who you are at that point. That guy didn't care. Look, that guy, what's Alpo did? He was in the street still. He went back to Harlem. He wanted to die. He wanted to, you know. I think the whole shit is fascinating. I think all of it is fascinating. Anyone who said that it's not is a liar. But that's, you know, it's not just our country. Historically, we've always had a thing about gangster shit, because gangster shit is conquering. Before you can be a gangster, you gotta be a thug, I guess, or just, you know, a stand-up person. You gotta stand up for something, learn how to defend yourself. Then you can become sort of a gangster. Like even politicians are gangsters, right? And then a conqueror, we think of, you know, Genghis Khan and Julius Caesar and, you know, Alexander the Great, or even Mansa Musa. All these guys are conquerors, though. I look at Jeff Bezos as a conqueror. I look at Elon Musk as a conqueror. These guys are conquerors to me. So in order to be a conqueror in my mind, you got to be a gangster, paper gangster, whatever it is. And I think at the end of the day, you can't say this guy Alpo wasn't a gangster. I don't know anybody, like, he died. This guy is totally just fascinated by it. I'm seeing what people say. He obviously, and that's the thing with Alpo and Sammy the Bull. When you're doing that much, providing that much for that many people, you're gonna get some love back when you come back home. And I think that's what took place. I think people still show Sammy the Bull love and Alpo. But I don't know what y'all think. What do y'all think about Alpo? What do you put, rats in my comment? He's a rat lover in my comments. Call me whatever you want.